I'm Margaret Graziano, and welcome to Work Liberated. Today we have a guest, Suzanne Heron of Soroptimist, and she is going to tell us about that organization and her participation in it. And specifically what I'll say is this is focused on women's empowerment. And welcome, Suzanne.
I'm so happy to be here, Maji. Thank you. Thank you.
Good. And Suzanne is coming to us from a remote island in British Columbia. And so her internet sometimes works great and sometimes it doesn't.
Yes.
Stick with us. And Suzanne, where are you calling in from today?
I am calling in from Lasqueti Island, which is probably the most obscure of the Canadian Gulf Islands. And I have taken on the role of governor of the Western Canada region of Soroptimist. So I am so grateful for Zoom because I can manage the work of the region from this little island with no provincial hydroelectricity and a passenger-only ferry. And I will actually, I'm looking out ahead of me across the Strait of Georgia and actually the Sabine Channel, which is kind of fun because that the Sabine is, for women. So I will now, you can have a peek out the back door of the forest that surrounds me. So, that whole Japanese thing of forest bathing.
Yes.
Totally into it that here.
Yeah, awesome. And I live in Aptos, California, so we have a little bit of forest by us, but you actually have to go, and it's filled with poison oak. So I try not to get on the little trails because that stuff is highly contagious. So tell us about the organization Soroptimist. How did it start? What does it do? And how did you get involved?
Well, Soroptimist is all about gender equality through access to education because gender equality is actually good for everyone. I think gender equality is the margin of success in economic development, in health, in safety, in peace. And just as an example of that, when women are involved in peace negotiations, what happens is treaties that last for 15 or more years, which is absolutely unheard of otherwise in peace negotiations. So gender equality is good for everyone. And education is the fastest path to equality. So Soroptimist stands for human rights. That's where we come down on every issue. And we have what's called general consultative status at the UN. We're one of only maybe 500 organizations with that. So we can comment on and advocate on every issue, which makes sense because gender equality cuts across all the sustainable development goals of the UN. So we're very active at the UN. We are international. We're across 122 countries, maybe, 75,000 members around the world. We're the biggest and the best volunteer network of women at our best, working to help other women be their best. And why me? Well, I grew up privileged. I grew up not realizing there was such a thing as violence against women, and so I became an avid feminist when I was working with a women's shelter organization. And so when I moved west and I met a Soroptimist at a business networking lunch, and she said, "We're all about empowering women and girls," I went, "Sign me up." And that was maybe 7 years ago. And I have found my people. I found my people instantly, and I found my people all over the world. I feel like I'm taking concrete action for gender equality. I'm taking concrete action, helping other women to be their best. I've learned leadership skills. I've learned what is happening on a global level. I just love everything about it, about being a Soroptimist. It's awesome.
Well, what's interesting is we do work with organizations specifically around creating culture where people experience intentional, healthy, and high performance, which means people are more engaged, they're more innovative, they work better together. And one of the, there's 4 basic human needs that all humans, no matter what gender, and that is connection to other people. Even if you're an introvert, you need connection to other people. You need significance. People need significance. They need to know that they matter, that they are of value on Earth, on the planet, in family, in work, in life. They also need some dimension of certainty and some dimension of novelty or change or variety. But then there's 2 spiritual needs, and one is growth and one is contribution. And as you were describing your participation in Soroptimist, I kept hearing growth and contribution, growth and contribution. And then you've got this big smile on your face and you say, I've met my people almost instantly. So it also is providing you with connection and significance. And so tell me, let's back up the bus a little bit. What is gender equality really, in your opinion?
It's the opportunity for everyone to have equal access to and equal rights. And one thing that's really interesting is how deeply ingrained some of our unconscious bias is. So, for instance, I read the quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Somebody asked her, when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court? And she said, when there are 9. And I went, oh, and then I went to myself, why are you going, oh, as she says, for, 200 years, there have been 12 men and nobody thought to bat an eye. So, right. So gender equality is not going to happen until women are in until women are in positions of decision making across the board in every organization that you can imagine, whether it's municipal government or police or the armed forces or a computing company, or because what happens when you don't have gender equality is stuff gets missed. Like I think when Apple brought out their health watch, like Apple Health or something, they forgot to put in the bit to monitor when women's periods are, and there was another application that came out that I can't remember what it was, but it couldn't register women's voices. So it's just ridiculous. And actually, I have a great story. The head of the engineering department at the city of Vancouver is deeply committed to gender equality, which means extra effort for him because he's got to go, because it's engineering, there are not as many women in the field. He's got to go farther afield to find good staff. So not just in his department, but for the whole city. So they decided to focus on parking garages and safety in parking garages because, of course, women want to be safe in parking garages. So, they worked with the lighting and the painting and all this stuff. Well, what do you know? Revenue from parking garages went up 30%. He said, it turns out everybody likes to be safe.
Yeah, so gender equality, what I'm hearing you say, or what I am interpreting as you're talking, is it's a balanced perspective. If there are both, well, there's more than 2 genders now, but if there is equanimity in the genders that are being represented, when policies are being made, when software is being developed, when I have a little outfit breakdown. Anyway, when policies are being developed, when processes or products are being developed, if there's representation, then there's representation. And it could be as simple as a parking garage. And then because we were looking through the eyes of what would a woman want, we're actually looking with a balanced perspective, a wide aperture for what people want and need. So really
yes.
Good. Now, when you talk about global Access. You said access. What does that mean? Access.
So I'll give you a couple of examples. One is helping individual women to gain access to education through, in our federation, through the Live Your Dream Awards, which are financial awards given to a woman who's the financial head of household. So usually a single mom, and she's either accepted to or attending some kind of post-secondary education. So Jessica was a homeless, pregnant teenager. She was determined to get back to school. She had her daughter. She was in a supported housing for young moms, and she received a Soroptimist Live Your Dream Award, which enabled her to start a spring session of the school year, which otherwise she wouldn't have been able to do. Then she won the region level award. So the first one was the club level. Then she won the region level award, which actually paid her rent for an entire year. Wow. And she received that award at the region conference in front of 100 cheering Soroptimists. So Christmas came along, the year ran down. She was running out of money. She felt like a failure because she couldn't afford a Christmas present for her mom. So she got a Soroptimist Christmas hamper, which had some extras in it, which enabled her to give a little present to her mom. So over the past 3 years, she has, first of all, she graduated in marketing and communications, that degree, launched immediately into a management position. And her words were, I have it right here. She said, the awards and the Soroptimist community helped me with my confidence. I have a group of women who believe in me and in the work they are doing. It confirmed that I was on the right path and that I would be successful. And that's the thing, that when I first joined, our club was quite new, and we were giving these tiny little monetary awards. And I thought, what difference does that make? But I had 3 or 4 women tell me, yeah, the money is great, but what actually was life-changing was this group of rock star women who said they believe in me. And that was incredible. So, over the past 3 years, Jessica has joined Soroptimist. She's volunteering with the housing program that helped her. She's married her partner. They have another little girl, and she has started her master's in community development. So that's one way, and multiply that, Jessica, by 35,000 women over the last 50 years. So the collective impact of helping individual women. So that's just one way in which we provide access to education. The other way is by tackling the systemic barriers to education. And so for instance, the last global initiative looked at child marriage, female genital mutilation, sexual exploitation, violence, the aging, issues of aging women, and there was one other. And so for example, in our region, the Soroptimist International of Central Alberta has led the charge on advocacy for menstrual equity, because, as you know, a period should end a sentence, not an education. And unfortunately, it does end educations, not just in the third world, but on this continent too. So because, girls lose out on school. So Central Alberta started advocacy and providing product in schools. And within 3 months, which was a year and a half ahead of their schedule, the government of Alberta announced that they would do a pilot project to provide menstrual supplies in all schools free of charge. So that was pretty awesome.
You don't even think about things like that. Yeah, I don't even think about things like that because.
Right.
And I would say that if somebody would have told me I was privileged at 19 as a single mother, not getting child support, having to leave school, I would have said I'm not privileged, but the truth is I had a mom who helped me with my son, and I got to live in my mom's house. And I got to be considered for a job in recruiting because I lived in a neighborhood that was close to where the businesses were. And I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, which was a privilege. All of that is a privilege. The definition of privilege is really interesting because I would tell you, well, I worked hard for everything I had, but without my mom and without my education and without knowing the girls that I knew in my all-girls Catholic high school, I would never even have known about that job in recruiting. And so Soroptimist is in how many countries?
I think 122. And we're in 5 federations. So I am in Soroptimist International of the Americas, which goes through North and Central and South America. And also for some reason, the Philippines, Japan, Taiwan, Korea. There's the Southwest Pacific Federation would really like to rename themselves because they have some countries who are neither South nor West nor Pacific, like Nepal. And then SIGB is Soroptimist International of Great Britain and Ireland, and SI of Europe. And the newest federation is Africa. And that's just an amazing federation. My club has what we call friendship links with 2 clubs in Africa. So we really learn what they're doing and we help them out. We share ideas. It's really cool.
And let me ask you a question. So women's organizations that are about equality and access, are there these things for men, impoverished men? And are you aware of those organizations, or are they now a lost group?
Well, they are kind of, and I have a couple of notions about that. One is, like back 30 years ago or 40 years ago, whenever it was that I was working with the Women's Shelter Organization, and we would go out to service clubs or whatever and do talks. And folks would say, well, what about the men? What about the abused men? Yeah. And so I would say, hey, go for it. Start something. Do something. This is our focus. You can have that focus. Yeah. And I think 2 other things. One is there has been such an inequality for so long. It is so ingrained in what we do. My gosh, there was something came out on the Canadian news last week about a report that was done into the RCMP, and this whole culture of sexual harassment and sexual exploitation and abuse. And the authors of the report said it was the culture was such that women who work were seen as sexual toys for the men, or there for sexual gratification for the men who was there. It's a hugely male culture, and I'm not going to bash men, paint them all with one brush. I think that we, like when I read that quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I went, 9 women on the Supreme Court, that's outrageous. So if that is my initial reaction, and then everybody is subject to those sort of cultural biases. And there's lots of research that says the men in an organization are quite unaware of the challenges that women experience because they don't experience them. Yeah. And, so there is one organization, there's 2 organizations that I know of that I think are awesome. One is called Promundo, and I haven't got at my fingertips who runs it, but I heard him speak last year at the UN's Commission on the Status of Women, which as a Soroptimist, I could attend for free, and it was amazing. Huge eye-opener. So they're doing incredible work. And here, I'm not sure where they're based out of, I think the US. And here in Canada, we have Next Gen Men, which is a fabulous organization working with men and boys, because boy, that's where we need to do the shift.
So what I'm hearing is there at some point has been an underrepresentation of women in, guiding women to step into leadership. And now there's also becoming a representation for helping men, period, whether it's be better men, helping women be better women, but this hand up so that people can, we're embodying, and that's not the word, but like embracing, embodying, generating the next level of leaders who can see the whole picture. So
yes,
you got involved because it was your people, because you had worked with the shelter. How is doing this volunteer work impacting your life?
Well, I think the power that I've experienced is, first of all, it's a huge honor to support these women with incredible grit who are determined to reach their dreams. And also hearing, so one of our other terrific programs is called Dream It Be It. And I'll just make a little segue for a minute here in this question. So Dream It Be It gets high school age girls fired up about taking responsibility for their own lives and believing that they can and having some tools to do that. My club organizes, first we have kind of a career fair. We have 50 women in all walks of life who are talking with the girls about what they love about what they do and obstacles they've overcome. And then we have some fabulous workshops. And Dream It Be It is hugely successful. And so one of the thrills for me was when one participant, wrote on her feedback sheet what she got out of it. And she said, we can do anything we want, and everyone has their own path, and life is not linear. And I always thought it was. And I thought, yes, like if she's got that is.
Wrote that? A high school girl?
Yes. Because, they're talking to all these women who are, again, like they're rock stars. They're passionate about what they're doing. They're so excited, and they've lived with an abusive past. They've lived in poverty. They've one woman said 40 years of survivor guilt because it was my best friend who was killed in the car crash, and so they've struggled with, or another woman said, my parents wouldn't let me take art classes, or I for 30 years, I didn't believe I could write. So they've overcome all these obstacles, and the girls see that, and they see what they're doing, and they realize that it's possible. And they also realize that, so many of them think you go to high school, you go to university, you get a job, right? And no, it's not. We do all sorts of things, You started out in recruiting, right? I started out taking biology in university. So it's, so it's not linear. So just, and the other super success story, this is just so amazing. One Dream It Be It participant a couple of years ago wanted to join Soroptimist. She didn't have the money. So we found a sponsor for her, and we created this entire program called the Soroptimist Leadership Institute. And she has a mentor within the club. We've organized 4 or 5 leadership workshops. She's, taking part in the programs. And 2 months ago, she stood up at a meeting and she announced that she was going to take on our club's role in the No Barriers Period project, the Period Poverty Project. And I said, so Vinnie, well, how much did the Leadership Institute have to do with that? And she said, oh, everything. I'm so much more confident now. I know so much. I have all these great mentors. I don't feel like I need to volunteer here and there because I've got everything I need right here. And it was like music to my ears, right? So we have created a lifelong feminist who is going to change the world. And just the thrill of doing that, I think, for me, it's the deep satisfaction of seeing the impact that we have, of seeing change happen, whether it's funding for menstrual equity for schools in Alberta, or the women's police stations in the Philippines, to handle violence against women, or the agreed solutions at the UN's Commission on the Status of Women, and the personal growth and development, and just the expansive energy of the global friendships that just seem to make everything possible. So for me,
so I have all sorts of questions right now.
Okay.
What is the definition of feminist?
Well, for me, it's
good for you.
For me, it's I am a feminist because I have some understanding of the historical emphasis on the male imbalance of power in the world. And with that knowledge and understanding, I'm promoting equal rights, equal opportunity, equal everything for all genders. And I'm doing that because not only is it the right thing to do, but it is also, as I said, good for everyone. So to me, a feminist is just someone who gets. one of our club members said to me about her husband. She said, "Oh, Suzanne, Dave is woke," and so he gets it. And my husband is an avid feminist, and I think it's just being attuned to looking at what's happening through the lens of, is there an underlying equality here, or is there an underlying assumption of one gender having more power than another?
So next thing, I want to get your take on this. So we did a women's leadership program for a male-dominated company. And you said you guys were going to do more of this, and you said you liked it. And the comment that came back to me was, well, they were so empowered and they wanted to make all these improvements, and we can't manage it all. So we don't want anybody else to be getting all those ideas and that excited about making change here, because we can't keep up with that engagement. And I've never heard anything so silly in my life. What do you say to that besides, oh, good, I probably don't want you as a client?
So you don't want to be the best you can be. Yeah. We sometimes we've been out at the public, like a Saturday market, right, in town, and it's so much fun for me. And again, this is going to sound male bashing, or it'll sound arrogant because those poor guys. I'm incorrigible, so somebody will be walking along, 10 feet in, and I'll say, "Excuse me, I've got a couple of questions for you. Do you want to come over here for a minute?" Right? And so people come, and I say, so, on a scale of 1 to 10 for gender equality, where do you think Canada is? Where do you think we are? And the men will say, "Oh, we're like about an 8 probably, because, there's that whole pay equity thing, but the rest, is pretty good." And the women start rolling their eyes and they're going, 5. And it gets back to what I was saying, that if you haven't lived with the challenges, then it's very easy to be oblivious to them. I was oblivious. As I say, I grew up in a lovely family that supported me in all that I wanted to do. I had no clue that there were these difficulties for people. So, one of the things that's going on here in Canada in a big way right now is the whole truth and reconciliation process with First Nations. And I was gobsmacked. The other day we were on a whole family Zoom, and 2 members were talking about, one of them's in school and one of them is, I think, at work, and they're having mandatory sessions on just education about the history of colonization and the impact that has had on Indigenous people. And I went, now how could we get the same kind of traction on that with gender equality and what happens with women and girls? I would really love to explore that, because I think that's what it takes. You know, Emma Thompson, the great British actor, provided the funding for an extraordinary installation, which I think was first in London, and then I traveled around a bit. And it was a series of shipping containers. And they set up the interior of the shipping containers to tell people what human trafficking victims experience, what it is like. And the people walking through that, men and women, were utterly shell-shocked. And I think sometimes it takes that level of impact on your senses and on your, psyche to go, oh, wow. And then the flip side of it is understanding what can happen when you have gender equality, when you have diversity, knowing that I think the Canadian economy would explode by $4 billion if we had gender equality in this country. So whether it's a little organization, whether it's someone who's too exhausted to keep up with the change that people want, a big organization, any organization will benefit by putting attention to equality and diversity.
Okay, so now you mentioned sex trafficking, which I was going to go for at the end, but so I've always had an interest. The whole thing just really is horrifying, and I know there are some men. So I did some fundraising and some donating to Operation Underground Railroad, and the majority of the people they're saving are women in Asia, and then rehabilitating them back into life. And seeing the video of what these poor girls, 9 years old, it's mind-boggling. So I'm going to look for Emma's art installation. But what is Soroptimist doing for education around sex trafficking, or is that not part of what y'all are involved in?
I'm so glad you asked. In the closer to you, I'm not quite sure which region it is, but there's something called STAT, which is Soroptimists Together Against Trafficking. And that's a whole website, and they've got a whole program going. One of the Soroptimists from the club in North and West Vancouver, she and that club were the ones who initiated all of the petitions. And this was in the early 2000s. They started working on these petitions that culminated in December of 2014, I think, Canada passing a law which brought what's called the Nordic model to Canada. So real quickly, there's three ways of dealing with prostitution. I mean, many people, prostitution is illegal. And so the women get picked up, the Johns don't get picked up. So you can decriminalize it.
That's right there. That's gender inequality.
Yes. So you can decriminalize it, which is what they've done in New Zealand, which then the police don't care because, well, we have so much more that is criminal, that is illegal. We're going to focus on that. And what that does, of course, is it gives free rein to the traffickers and the pimps. You can legalize it, which they've done in Germany, and is an unmitigated disaster because now in Germany, some people think there's as many as 1 million sexually exploited prostitutes in Germany. And the vast majority of them are from Eastern Europe. Now they're trafficked in. There's a hotel. It's like this 8-story hotel, and it's called Paradise. Big sign at the top. The entire thing is rooms with women in them, and they have to be raped 6 times a day just to pay the rent on that room that they are forced to pay. So, and again, because it's legal, it gives free rein to the traffickers. And in Germany, oh my gosh. So if you want to get out of prostitution, to get a job. So what have you been doing the last 10 years? And usually if you go to, if you're out of work, right, you go to the unemployment agency, and then they say, well, you've got to spend time, looking for work. And one woman said, I've looked for work, I can't find anything. And that particular office said to her, well, you haven't been to Paradise to look for work.
Oh,
and she was so, yes. And she was so, she was so outraged, and she got enough people behind her who were outraged that they stopped, they said, okay, we're not going to go that far. Prostitution is not a job.
I guess it's a job if that's your choice, but specifically.
Well, let me just.
I don't want to go there because I think that's a whole separate podcast. But I really want to understand a 9-year-old girl, a 10-year-old girl that is taken from her home and forced to be raped. And what is so your organization is preventing that? You're fighting for advocacy for that? What are you doing?
Yes. So I'll give you one great example. Oh, and I will just say, survival prostitution will always exist until we have a guaranteed minimum income. So that's for the next podcast. But great story.
Yeah, that is actually a good podcast subject.
Yeah.
This minimum rate. So everybody gets paid to. There's a lot of controversy on that, but let's stick.
Yes. So focus. So great story for you. The Soroptimist International as a worldwide organization, basically, and the members of which are the federations, and it has two roles. One is advocacy at the UN, and the other is what we call the President's Appeal. So whoever is the president for 2 years forms a project that every Soroptimist club contributes to all over the world. And one of the ones a few years ago was called Educate to Lead Nepal. So the focus was on Nepal and education there. There was a Soroptimist club from, again, I think someplace in California, who had a link with a village in Nepal. And they got that link because, of course, one of their members was hiking in Nepal, and their guide was a guy who wanted to go to school in the U.S., and so they helped him, et cetera, et cetera. He became an engineer, working on satellites and stuff. And so this is his village. And over the course of 20 years, they built the school. They have the teachers. They started agriculture projects, and there is zero trafficking from that village. And from one of this guy's satellites, as it goes over, it'll look down and it shows brown, and a little patch of green. And that's this village.
Wow.
So it's so cool. That's one of my favorite stories from the global.
So help me understand. One of the things we want to do as an organization is take a percentage of our profit and donate it to an organization that we know is doing the right thing around human trafficking, which is to end it. It is I have no ifs, ands, I'm not ambiguous about that. It is to end it. And I really love everything you and Darlene, our mutual friend, Darlene Hoff, who also works for us and is a great executive coach. I want to get involved with Soroptimist, and anybody watching. Contribution, volunteering is part of the liberation of the human spirit. People want to contribute. So how do we find out where our local Soroptimist is? Is there a a global website where then they have different regions, or for those of us in California, how do I find how to contribute, whether it's money or time? I'd like to do both. And I think it's very aligned with liberating the human spirit, which is my calling in life.
Yes, it is. Well, in anywhere in the US, if you just go to soroptimist.org, you can find out pretty much everything about the Soroptimist International of the Americas, and our Live Your Dream programs, our Dream It Be It programs. And
live your dreams, dream it, be it. I love the name of both of those.
Yes. And I'm just looking now. Well, one of the little boxes to click on says join us. And so here's a thing to find your club. And you can find one of the 1,300 clubs that's nearest you. Wow. And you can also join one of the growing number of online clubs. This Saturday, we are chartering our online club in Western Canada, which I'm really stoked about.
And how old are girls need to be to join? Like if a young lady wants to be part of the Soroptimist, and does it have to be somebody from an impoverished background, or is this all girls everywhere can be involved in this movement?
Yes, everyone can be involved. Now, we are a membership organization, and there is a membership fee. And some people say, why do I have to pay to volunteer? Well, you're not actually paying to volunteer. You're paying to be part of and supportive of a global movement, a global network of women all over the world. You're paying for the work that we do at the UN, for the extraordinary amount of resources and level of resources that are available. And so membership, I think, just you're paying for leadership opportunities, networking opportunities.
I no question about it. I'm going to, at my lunch, I'm going to go online and I'm going to look at soroptimist.org near me. I want to contribute. I want to volunteer. Thank you, Suzanne Heron, very, very much. We appreciate your time, and thank you for contributing to the world.
Well, thank you very much, Maji, and all of you, your whole crew who is, again, contributing to making this a better world. And I so look forward to meeting you in person in Dublin at our international convention next year.